Greetings, adventurers. My name is Kramer, and nothing is worse than being unprepared. This video is catered towards LARP, but I treat every LARP like I would every adventure, so a lot of this stuff is going to be interchangeable. If you wanted to bring it on a camping trip or fantasy reenactment, something like that, just replace the LARP items for their actual real-world equivalents, and you'll be good to go. Not everyone is going to have the same things, want the same things, or have access to the same things. So while I do have lots of recommendations for you, in this video, this is not just a list of things to take with you, it is a list of things to do, an actual checklist to make sure that you are ready to go on an adventure. And there are three categories we're going to be working with. There's soft kit, hard kit, and camping kit. Soft kit is what you're wearing, hard kit is what you carry with you, and your camping kit is everything else that you don't always have on your person, but that you need to have with you in order to survive. And some of these are going to be modern items, and as many of them as possible are going to be in period. I always try to make sure that I can carry everything that I need with me on just my person, but sometimes you have a friend, and sometimes you have a pack animal, and sometimes you have a cart or a wagon. Not everyone's soft kit is going to look the same, and at this point you should have already designed what you want your character to look like, and that's not what this video is for. That's what this video is for. Make sure to put everything on a few times before you go on your adventure, and make sure that everything fits how you want it to and that you have the range of mobility that you want to have. Make sure that it's not going to be too hot in the conditions you'll be adventuring in, or too cold. That's currently what I'm doing right now. You may notice that I have a new hood on. It's because I'm testing everything out. Go for a walk, take notes of what needs to be added, adjusted, removed, or changed, and then when you go to take everything off for that last final test, make sure that you put everything in one single location, wash things that need to be washed, and then keep everything together so you don't even need to worry about it. And then from that, if you wanted to, you could go ahead and write a list of just the things that are directly in front of you. You don't have to worry about working from your memory because it's all right there. Some standout tips regarding your soft kit. I always recommend that adventurers have at least 2 belts. So you have one belt that has your sword, maybe some of the larger pouches, things that you're not going to necessarily want on you all of the time. That way, if you take them off, you're also not undressing yourself, and you have the belt with the pouches with the most immediate things that you always want to have, your daggers, something like that, always on you. Belts are also useful tools when it comes to tying things down or packing things, so it's always just a good thing to have an extra just in case. And in a pinch, you can use them as a tourniquet or something. Make sure to plan out what you are carrying in all of your pouches so that you know where everything goes, it has a place, and it's easy to access. And make sure that nothing that you keep in your pouches is in danger of falling out. Be smart about what you are putting in each type of pouch. A hard pouch like this with structure is going to protect its contents much better than a soft pouch like this. But these take up a lot less space, but have a lot more volume that they can carry. Have cold weather and rain options just in case as it gets into the nighttime. Either go for a period, waterproofed option like wool. Oilcloth and waxed canvas, as I've been informed, tend to make very poor clothing. This is a duck cloth hood that I have on right now, and it's got felt on the opposite side. I'll just be waterproofing that with a spray, but always make sure that you have something just in case the weather takes a turn for a worse, because hypothermia is something that you don't want to mess with. I'm always concerned about freezing to death. I'm almost never concerned about overheating for some reason. It's just when someone says go on an adventure, my first thought is, will I be cold? Same with your shoes. Make sure that they are comfortable and make sure that you can walk around in them for hours. Test those out. If you're having trouble being comfortable in period shoes that you happen to have, you can go ahead and take your sneaker inserts and put them in those boots, or you can buy things to put in there anyway. Or if you have shoes that you want to use that are more comfortable but that don't look period, you can go for gaiters or boot covers, something like that. But make sure that they're not going to take on water the second you step into a puddle, because I've been there. I had fun, but it would ruin some people's experiences. In an absolute worst case scenario, you can put plastic bags over your socks and inside of your shoes to keep your feet dry, but I'd like to try to avoid that if possible, and I bet you would too. So bring socks, lots of extra socks, more socks than you need. Bring all the socks you have, and bring extra pairs of underwear too, and bring perhaps even an extra pair of pants or an extra tunic just to keep yourself nice and clean for the entire adventure. And my advice is that your sleeping wear is separate from your base layer of clothing, so that way when you go to sleep, you can feel nice and clean. And if you've got armor, go through all of that, make sure that you can get into it and out of it by yourself. If you can't, make sure that you have someone at the event or someone going with you lined up so that they can help you get in and out of it. Getting into your armor at the beginning of the day when everyone's still in camp is not as big of an issue, but towards the middle of the day when you decide that you're tired and you want someone to walk back to your camp with you to help you take it off, plan that ahead. Last thing before you go to pack your costume, your garb, your soft kit, make sure that any metal armor pieces aren't rusted. If they are, tend to that. Make sure that buckles, straps, etc. are all in good condition. Make sure that you don't have seams coming loose that need to be replaced. And finally, make sure that everything that you waterproofed is actually still waterproof, because that does wear off eventually. All right, moving on to the hard kit, which is all of the pieces of equipment that you actually carry. Some LARPs use what are called item cards, and these are essentially business card-sized pieces of paper that denote what an item is. It could be a potion, it could be a sword. Some LARPs use these, some LARPs don't. So my advice is to actually get a little leather wallet that is meant to hold business cards so that you can wrap everything up nice and neat, carry everything with you if you need it. And this would actually be a really simple design to make. I'm trying not to do as many craft videos recently, but this would be simple, so maybe I'll do one. So this is a modern knife. I obviously have in-period knives as well, but I'm of the opinion that if you are allowed to bring any sort of utility knife, it's a really good idea to do so. Some LARPs aren't gonna want you to do that, so check the rules, make sure you ask permission. If you're just going out and doing your own thing, more power to you. You never know that you're gonna need a knife until you need one. Make sure that you have a vessel for carrying your water. Make sure that that vessel is large enough that you don't have to refill it the second you quench your thirst. You want it to be able to carry you through a couple of hours at least, and do not get dehydrated. Leather costrals, bodas, canteens made of wood, gourds, tin, copper, all of those have their pros and cons. Some of them are easily breakable, some of them are much more heavy than other ones, and you can get them all in various sizes. Once you have the option that you're gonna go with, make sure that however it is you're going to carry it, it is comfortable for you. It's not gonna bang around and hurt one of your bones or something. And keep in mind that it's gonna be more space on your body that you have to worry about something fitting. If you've got pouches, quiver, backpack, sword, dagger, all that stuff, the water bottle has to fit somewhere, so plan all of that out for yourself. And a bonus for water bottles is to make sure that they are easy to clean. Do you have a way of telling time? And are you going to need some sort of compass? Are there maps for the event that you're going to that you're going to want to read either in-game or out of game? Pocket watches aren't at all historical to the medieval period, but they're less obtrusive than a phone. And when you're talking about a fantasy LARP, you're probably gonna get away with it a little bit easier. I always like to have a journal of some sort with a pen or a pencil. I've never actually had the time to use those items, but you never know. And if you don't have a quill or you don't want to carry around an ink pot, then what you can do with the pencil is you can just break off the eraser head of a regular number 2 wooden pencil, break off the eraser head, and then just use your knife to scrape off all of the paint on the outside, so you're just left with the raw wood underneath, and that's gonna look just fine. Brooches are incredibly, incredibly useful. I have 3, they're not that expensive. There's a large one, there's the medium one that I've got right here on my hood, and then I've got a much smaller one. My advice is to have at least one more than you think that you need, because you never know when you're going to lose one or when you're going to realize that actually you need that other one. If you don't have access to a brooch or you don't want to buy one, then you can use a large thorn from a couple different types of trees. There's a video here, or you can use a nail. Just make sure it's not rusty. You don't want to be giving yourself any diseases, but you can use a nail as a brooch instead. All right, lastly, camping kit. Make sure you are bringing snacks. Some LARP events are catered, even if they are. Bring extra snacks because you are going to be hungry. Make sure that the foods that you bring are not going to perish in the weather, and keep them in a sealed, hard container so that animals can't get into it if you are not by your camp. And if I were you, I wouldn't keep my food directly inside my tent, because you just don't want to have to deal with critters trying to get into your tent while you're sleeping. They make things called bear cans that is specifically meant to keep larger scavenging animals away from your food. And at a LARP event, a bear, I think it was probably a bear, just given the amount of scratching on my bear can, did try to get to my food. So bear that in mind. You're gonna be dealing with wild animals potentially. If you're one of those people that does not like beef jerky, then salami is an excellent other protein option that looks very in period and isn't going to perish as easily as like raw or cooked meat. I have started bringing hydratory packets on my adventures with me. I use liquid IV. Yes, it's absolutely a modern thing, but they taste really good, and even if they help only a little bit, it's still worth it to have. And even though they're not historical, I'm thinking what you could do is you could probably put that liquid IV into one of these little glass vials here, and that could be like a really cool way of getting some potion making or alchemy with a purpose into your game if you have those sorts of rules. And a more period option would be to add vinegar to your water. That is a medieval thing. It's not just European medieval either. It spans a number of cultures as well. And I've done a video where I did a honey and vinegar mixture that you could dilute in water, and it doesn't actually taste bad. That might surprise some of you. Just make sure that you aren't overdoing it on the vinegar, because you can make yourself sick with all that acid. Are you going to be responsible for your own lodging, or will that be provided to you? If you're supposed to bring your own tent, is it required to be a period tent? Because historically accurate canvas tents are not cheap. Whatever you get, make sure that you take the time to put it up in your backyard if you're able to make sure that you know how everything goes together, so that you're not scrambling around as the game is starting to begin trying to figure out how your tent goes up. And while you're putting it up, if it's not a brand new tent, make sure that it's clean, make sure that there's not mold growing on it, and make sure that it's still waterproof. Make sure that you have the proper sleep system. My advice would be, if you have a period sleep system, just have a modern sleeping bag in your car away from camp, just in case things get dangerous. How are you going to see in the dark? Are you even allowed to bring candles or lanterns, or is open flame going to be regulated at your location? I've had trouble, not legally, but just transporting oil lamps in the past. I've had the oil freeze, I've had the oil leak. It's just not a great time. And if you're trying to light the inside of your tent, you're getting into carbon monoxide issues. Electric options might be better for you, but they tend to put out less light. Toiletries are a no-brainer. Please bring them. These tend to be modern, but you can look into historically accurate options if you want to start brushing your teeth with a stick. The way that I go about that is I tend to buy items that just have medieval or vintage branding, simply because I can. Living anachronism is in the name. But one of the most useful things that I have brought on my adventures is actually a small tin of beard balm. Not necessarily just for my beard. You don't need it for 3 days. You'll be fine. But the reason is that any small tin of oil or wax-based, like pomade essentially, is going to be useful for you, because you can use it to keep metal pieces that you have from rusting. You can use it to treat leather that happens to be drying out or overstretching. That is what I've used it for. You don't think you need it until you realize that you do, and then you wish you had it. So if you can go to your local hardware store and pick something like that up, it doesn't have to be beard balm, it just has to be easily spreadable, like a butter of some sort. Go ahead and do that. You're not going to regret it. You'll use it. Gentlemen who are planning on shaving during the event, how are you going to do that? I shave with a straight razor, so that requires a number of extra items. It's not like I can just like grab my Mach 5 or something and just go for it. If you're flying into the location, are you allowed to travel with the type of razor that you have? You can bring a straight razor, you just have to check it. The problem is, if you're not checking a bag, then you can't bring the razor. Are you also responsible for providing your own cutlery? If so, there are a lot of materials to choose from. Wood and horn are the lightest options, and they're still very durable. They're my favorite. And then there is something like forged iron, which I really dislike because of the taste and the texture. For plates and bowls and cups, ceramic is a period option, but they're heavy and they break easily, so just keep that in mind. Wooden, tin, pewter, and ceramic plates can all be found at thrift stores on occasion for relatively cheap, but I've also seen some nicer options at places like TJ Maxx. And I personally always encourage the support of small and local businesses and craftspeople, so go ahead and just see what's around you. You may be surprised what you find in a pottery barn. Personally, I prefer having a bowl to a plate, or both a bowl and a plate. You don't really need a plate. A bowl will do just fine. It's much more versatile. Choosing a cup is very important, and they can be made from pretty much anything: ceramic, leather, wood, metal, and all of those have their pros and cons. Some things to consider. Are you planning on wearing your cup on your belt with a little strap like they do at some Renaissance fairs? Make sure that your cup isn't going to break easily and that it's not too heavy. I personally wouldn't recommend doing that. But the most important consideration is, do you plan on having both hot and cold beverages? Because while all of those options can take cold liquids, not all of them can take hot liquids. Coffee is not medieval per se, but it is a LARP in a fantasy setting, and you need your coffee. Coffee is important, so no one's really gonna bat an eye. They had coffee in Ranger's Apprentice. They do make leather tankards that have sort of a modern resin on the inside that can accept hot water. That's not a period thing, it's a modern thing that looks like a period thing. I don't have a source for you because I've never purchased one. Ceramic can obviously take a hot liquid, it's just that they're heavier and they're easier to break. So when you're packing them and traveling with them, you need to be a lot more careful. Wood is a great option because it's light, it can take a hot liquid if it seasons properly, and that's pretty much all you can ask for. The problem with metal cups is that you don't always know what material they're made out of, especially if you bought like a metal tankard at a party gift store or at a thrift store and you don't know what the metal is. The cheaper metals can potentially start to leak dangerous chemicals into the water when exposed to heat. If you don't know what your cup is made out of, it's really not worth the risk in my opinion. Finally, as you're going through your list, hopefully with the help of this video, I'm going through my packing list right now. Make sure that you have a to-do list of things that you either need to make, fix, or buy, of the projects that are going to have to be completed before you go to your LARP. If you want some advice on how to make your camp look more medieval, even if it's mostly modern things, then go ahead and check out this video. And if you're staying at home but still want a little piece of that medieval aesthetic, then you can go ahead and check out that one. It's an oldie, but a goodie. And in the meantime, I'd like to wish you good luck on your adventures.